Stop everything. After months of fear, uncertainty, and sleepless nights, we finally have good news coming out of Washington. USCIS just announced changes that could speed up your work permit, protect your green card application, and give relief to thousands facing deportation. I've worked inside the immigration system for 2 decades, and what I'm about to share with you could change your life before 2026 even begins. If you've been waiting, praying, hoping for a breakthrough, this is your moment. Don't skip a single second of this video because the information I'm about to give you is exactly what you've been waiting for. There are moments in immigration history when everything shifts, when the doors that seemed permanently locked suddenly crack open, when the system that felt designed to crush your dreams finally shows a glimmer of mercy, when the phone calls to lawyers, the prayers whispered at night, the tears shed over rejection notices, all of it finally leads to something that looks like hope. We are living in one of those moments right now. And if you're an immigrant in America, if you're watching your calendar wondering when your work permit will arrive, if you're checking your mailbox every single day for that green card approval, if you're living in fear that a knock on the door could tear your family apart, then what I'm about to tell you matters more than anything you'll hear this week. The United States immigration system has been broken for so long that most people have given up expecting good news. We've become conditioned to expect delays, denials, confusion, and cruelty. We've watched processing times balloon from months to years. We've seen families separated by bureaucratic incompetence. We've witnessed people who followed every rule, paid every fee, and did everything right still end up in legal limbo with no answers and no timeline. The system hasn't just failed immigrants. It's traumatized them. It's stolen years of their lives. It's turned the American dream into an American nightmare. But something is shifting. In the final weeks before we close the chapter on 2025 and step into 2026, the Department of Homeland Security, USCIS, and immigration courts have announced a series of policy changes, processing improvements, and relief measures that represent the most significant positive movement we've seen in years. These aren't empty promises. These aren't political talking points. These are actual, implementable changes that are already beginning to impact real people with real cases. And if you understand what's happening and how to position yourself to benefit, you could see your immigration situation transform in the coming weeks. Let me break down exactly what's happening, why it matters, and what you need to do right now to make sure you don't miss this window of opportunity. This is not about hype. This is not about false hope. This is about cold, hard facts delivered by someone who has spent 20 years inside the system, who knows how these agencies think, how these policies get implemented, and how immigrants can actually benefit when the system finally decides to work. The first major piece of good news is that USCIS has announced an emergency processing initiative for work permit applications, specifically targeting the massive backlog of employment authorization document applications that have left hundreds of thousands of people unable to work, unable to support their families, and unable to live normal lives while their cases penned. For years, immigrants with pending asylum applications, adjustment of status applications, and other categories that qualify for work authorization have been stuck in processing hell. You file your application, you pay your fees, you submit your biometrics, and then you wait. 3 months becomes 6 months. 6 months becomes 9 months. 9 months becomes a year. Meanwhile, your old work permit expires. Your employer can't keep you on payroll. Your bills pile up. Your savings evaporate. Your children ask why you can't buy groceries. And there's nothing you can do except wait and hope that USCIS remembers you exist. But starting immediately, USCIS has redirected resources to clear this backlog. They've hired additional officers. They've implemented automated systems to fast-track straightforward cases. They've created a dedicated task force focused exclusively on work permit adjudications. The agency has committed to processing initial work permit applications within 90 days and renewal applications within 60 days. Now let me be clear. This doesn't mean every single application will be approved in 90 days. There will still be cases that require additional review, cases with complications, cases that take longer. But the majority of applicants who have clean records, complete documentation, and straightforward eligibility should see dramatic improvements in processing times. And for people who have been waiting 6 months, 9 months, a year or more, USCIS has announced they will prioritize aging cases first. If your application has been pending since 2024 or earlier, you should see movement very soon. This is life-changing. A work permit is not just a piece of plastic. It's dignity. It's the ability to provide for your family. It's the difference between surviving and thriving. It's the thing that lets you wake up in the morning with purpose instead of despair. For asylum seekers who fled violence and persecution, for spouses of green card holders who are waiting for their own status, for DACA recipients who need renewals, for people adjusting status after years of living in the shadows, this work permit processing improvement is everything. It's oxygen. And USCIS finally realizes that people can't breathe while they wait. The second major piece of good news is the announcement of green card processing improvements, specifically for employment-based and family-based adjustment of status applications. For years, even people with approved immigrant petitions have faced crushing delays at the final stage of their journey. Your employer sponsors you. Your I-140 gets approved. You file your I-485 adjustment of status application, and then you enter a black hole where updates are rare, timelines are unpredictable, and your entire life is on hold. You can't travel freely. You can't take certain career opportunities. You can't plan your future because you don't know if you'll get your green card in 6 months or 6 years. The same nightmare plays out for family-based applicants. Your spouse is a U.S. citizen. Your marriage is real. Your documents are perfect, but your case sits untouched while USCIS prioritizes newer cases or gets buried under administrative chaos. But USCIS has now announced that they are implementing a case management system that will more fairly distribute workloads, reduce processing time variance between service centers, and provide more transparency to applicants about where their cases stand in the queue. More importantly, they've committed to adjudicating employment-based I-485 applications within 12 months of filing for applicants with current priority dates, and they're creating an expedited track for applicants who have been waiting more than 24 months. Family-based I-485 applications are also being prioritized, especially for immediate relatives of U.S. citizens, where there should be no backlog at all, but bureaucratic incompetence has created years of unnecessary delays. Think about what this means. Think about the engineer from India who has been waiting 8 years for a green card, unable to change jobs, unable to start a business, unable to feel secure in the country he's called home for a decade. Think about the nurse from the Philippines who has been separated from her children for 5 years because her adjustment is stuck in processing. Think about the American citizen married to someone from Mexico who can't travel to visit dying relatives because leaving the country could jeopardize their pending application. These processing improvements mean these people might finally see the finish line. They might finally get the security they've earned. They might finally exhale. The third major piece of good news is perhaps the most emotionally significant. The Department of Homeland Security has announced new prosecutorial discretion guidelines and deportation relief measures that could protect thousands of long-term undocumented immigrants from removal. Now let me be very careful here because this is where facts matter and misinformation spreads fast. This is not amnesty. This is not a pathway to citizenship. This is not legal status for everyone. But it is a formal policy directing Immigration and Customs Enforcement and immigration judges to deprioritize cases involving individuals who have been in the United States for extended periods, who have U.S. citizen family members, who have no criminal record, and who pose no threat to public safety or national security. What this means in practice is that if you're someone who came to America 20 years ago, who has raised children here, who has worked and paid taxes and been a part of your community, who has never committed a crime beyond the civil immigration violation of overstaying or entering without inspection, ICE is now officially directed to consider closing your case or granting you temporary relief from deportation. This doesn't give you status, but it gives you time. Time to explore other legal options. Time to see if legislation passes that could help you. Time to live without the constant terror of being ripped away from your family. Immigration judges are being instructed to administratively close cases that fit this profile rather than ordering deportation. And ICE attorneys are being told to join motions to terminate proceedings for low-priority cases. This policy shift is monumental because for years, the system operated with maximum enforcement. Everyone was a priority. Everyone was a target. It didn't matter if you'd been here 3 years or 30 years. It didn't matter if your children were honor students or your employer was begging you to stay. The machinery of deportation ground forward indiscriminately. But this new guidance represents a return to sanity, to proportionality, to recognizing that not every immigration violation deserves the death sentence of deportation and family separation. If you're someone with a pending removal case, if you're someone who has been living in fear, you need to talk to a lawyer immediately about whether this policy change could apply to you. There are procedures to request prosecutorial discretion, to file motions to reopen or reconsider, to present your case for relief. This is not automatic. You have to act. But the door is opening. The fourth major piece of good news is focused on visa processing improvements at consular posts around the world. One of the quietest but most devastating aspects of the immigration crisis has been the complete breakdown of visa processing abroad. U.S. embassies and consulates, already backlogged before COVID, became nearly non-functional during the pandemic and never fully recovered. Interview wait times stretched to 2 years in some countries. Approved petitions sat on shelves gathering dust. Families who did everything right, who paid fees, who got approvals, couldn't actually get visas because appointments were unavailable. Students missed semesters. Workers missed job start dates. Families missed years of being together. But the State Department has finally committed resources to address this disaster. They've announced emergency hiring of consular officers, expanded interview capacity at high-volume posts, and implemented new technology to streamline the visa interview and approval process. In countries like India, Mexico, the Philippines, and Nigeria, where backlogs were catastrophic, the State Department has committed to reducing wait times to under 6 months by mid-2026 and under 3 months by the end of 2026. They're also creating expedited appointment procedures for urgent cases involving medical emergencies, employment start dates, and academic deadlines. This matters because a visa approval in the United States is meaningless if you can't actually get the physical visa stamp to travel. For families waiting for their relatives to join them, for employers waiting for critical employees to arrive, for students who have deferred their education dreams for years, this consular processing improvement is the final piece of the puzzle. It's the bridge between approval and arrival. And for the first time in years, that bridge is being repaired. The fifth major piece of good news is the expansion of humanitarian parole programs and the extension of protections for vulnerable populations. While the details are still being finalized, DHS has signaled that it will expand family reunification parole programs that allow certain individuals to enter the United States temporarily while their immigrant visa cases are processed, rather than waiting abroad for years. This is particularly significant for families separated by the backlogs I mentioned earlier. Instead of waiting 3 years in another country for your immigrant visa, you could potentially receive parole to enter the U.S., reunite with your family, and complete the process here. Additionally, DHS has announced extensions of temporary protected status for several countries facing ongoing armed conflict, natural disasters, or extraordinary conditions that make return unsafe. Countries including Venezuela, Haiti, El Salvador, Honduras, Ukraine, and Afghanistan have seen their TPS designations extended through 2026 and in some cases beyond. For the hundreds of thousands of people from these countries living in the United States, this means continued work authorization, protection from deportation, and the ability to plan their lives with some degree of certainty. TPS is not permanent status and does not lead directly to a green card, but it's protection, and protection matters when the alternative is being sent back to danger. Now, let me tell you why all of this is happening right now. Some of it is political, some of it is administrative, some of it is economic. The Biden administration, in what may be its final months, is trying to cement a legacy of humane immigration policy. USCIS has been under congressional pressure to address backlogs and has finally received funding to do so. The State Department recognizes that visa delays are hurting American businesses and universities. And there's a growing recognition across government that the system has become so dysfunctional that it's creating humanitarian crises, economic harm, and political backlash. These changes aren't charity, they're necessity. The system was collapsing under its own weight, and these reforms are attempts to stop the bleeding. But here's what you need to understand. Good news in immigration is fragile. Policies change, administrations change, political winds shift. What's possible today might not be possible tomorrow. What's opening now might close next year. If you're in a position to benefit from any of these changes, you cannot afford to wait. You cannot afford to see what happens. You cannot afford to assume there will be more time. The window is open right now. Walk through it. If you have a work permit application pending, follow up with USCIS immediately. If you qualify for expedited processing under the new guidelines, request it. If you haven't filed your renewal and your expiration is approaching, file now to take advantage of the improved timelines. If you have a green card application that's been stalled, contact your attorney about requesting case status inquiries, speaking to your congressional representative, or filing mandamus if you've been waiting unreasonably long. If you're in removal proceedings and you fit the profile for prosecutorial discretion, you need to file a motion immediately with evidence of your ties to the United States, your family relationships, your community contributions, and your lack of criminal history. If you're waiting for a visa interview abroad, check the embassy website daily for canceled appointments or new capacity, and consider expedite requests if you qualify. This is your moment. These policy changes are real. The improvements are happening, but they only help people who act. The system doesn't find you. You have to find it. You have to push. You have to be strategic and relentless and informed. And that's where staying connected to accurate, timely information becomes critical. If this video gave you hope, if it gave you clarity, if it gave you a plan, then I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that subscribe button. I'm bringing you daily updates on U.S. immigration news, breaking policy changes, processing time improvements, and real strategies for real cases. You've been in the dark for too long. Let me be your source of light. Let this channel be the place you come to understand what's happening, what it means, and what to do about it. And please hit that like button and share this video with everyone who needs to see it. Your sister waiting for her work permit, your friend stuck in removal proceedings, your coworker whose spouse is waiting abroad, your church group, your community center, your group chat. Share it everywhere because information is power, and right now immigrants need every bit of power they can get. Drop a comment below and tell me your situation. Are you waiting for a work permit? Is your green card stuck in processing? Are you facing deportation? Are you waiting for a visa interview? Tell me what's happening with your case. This community supports each other. You are not alone in this fight. And sometimes just knowing that someone understands, that someone sees you, that someone cares, makes all the difference. And turn on that notification bell because immigration news doesn't wait for convenient times. A new policy can drop at midnight. A processing improvement can be announced on a Friday afternoon. A deadline can change without warning. You need to know immediately. Don't let a missed notification be the reason you miss your opportunity. The American immigration system has broken your heart before. It's stolen your time, tested your faith, and made you question whether this country really wants you. But today, right now, there is good news. There is movement. There is hope. These changes are real. These opportunities are real. Your chance to finally move forward is real. but only if you act now, only if you stay informed, only if you refuse to give up. You've already survived so much to get here. You've crossed borders, oceans, and mountains. You've left everything familiar behind. You've learned a new language, adapted to a new culture, and built a life from nothing. You've endured rejection, discrimination, and fear. You are stronger than the system that's trying to break you. And with the right information, the right timing, and the right strategy, you will win. I'll be here every single day, bringing you the updates you need, the strategies that work, and the hope that sustains. This is your time. This is your breakthrough. Let's seize it together. See you in the next video, and may your next update be your approval.